So, let's talk about NotebookLM. If you're in a field like project management or health IT, heck, any field where you're drowning in documents, you know this tool feels like magic. It's like it turns a mountain of PDFs into your own personal research assistant. But let's be honest, there's that little voice in the back of your head, right? The one that whispers, "What's my plan if this thing disappears tomorrow?" Well, today, we're not just going to listen to that voice. We're going to give it a playbook.
And this isn't just some abstract worry. This is a real quote from a real person during a very real outage. It just perfectly captures that sinking feeling, that moment you realize a helpful tool has become a critical crutch. If you've ever felt that little jolt of panic, yeah, you're definitely not alone.
So here's our game plan. We're going to treat this like a proper risk assessment. First, we'll talk about the AI dependency trap itself. Then, we'll break down the 3 big risks: the vendor just dropping the product, the service being flaky, and, maybe the scariest one, the hidden cost to our own brains. And then, the most important part. We'll finish with a clear, actionable playbook to make sure you're always in control.
All right, first up, what even is this dependency trap? Well, it's that tricky spot where a tool is so good, so easy, that it stops being just a tool and starts becoming a potential weakness. NotebookLM is a perfect storm for this, because it doesn't just help you do a task, it kind of changes the way you think about the task itself. You know, it's like how GPS didn't just help us navigate. For a lot of us, it replaced the actual skill of reading a map. That's the kind of shift we're talking about.
So what makes it so sticky? Well, it's this killer combo. It takes boring, static documents and makes them interactive. It just smooths out all that friction when you're trying to wrap your head around a new topic. You get this personalized expert tutor on demand, and suddenly, organizing 100 different sources feels effortless. That's the magic, and that's what makes it so easy to lean on, heavily. Okay, let's get into the first big risk. And if you've been in the professional world for a while, you know this one all too well: vendor risk. The big fear here is that Google, and its infinite wisdom, will just kill NotebookLM. Welcome to the infamous Google graveyard. The real question is, should we actually be worried about this?
Let's start with just a number: 288. That's not a guess. That is the actual number of products, services, and hardware that Google has officially sent to the graveyard. That's a lot. It's the data point that gives all of our professional paranoia some real teeth.
And this chart, wow, it really puts that number in perspective, doesn't it? A 51.5% discontinuation rate. It's literally a coin toss whether a new Google product will stick around. And we're not talking about obscure little apps here. We're talking about beloved products like Google Reader, huge bets like Stadia. This is a well-known pattern, and if you're building a workflow on their tech, you just have to be aware of it.
But, and you knew there was a but coming, there's a really strong case that NotebookLM is different. All the signs are pointing in the right direction. It's no longer experimental. They've launched paid tiers, which means it has a way to make money. It's being woven deeply into the core Google ecosystem: Workspace, Drive, Search. And with over 80,000 organizations already using it, yeah, this looks less like a side project and more like a strategic pillar.
So, okay, maybe Google won't kill it, but that brings us to risk number 2. What if it just doesn't work when you need it? We're moving from the hypothetical threat of a shutdown to the very real documented problem of outages. Because it doesn't really matter if the product exists if you can't access it 10 minutes before a big presentation, right?
And a quick look back at the past year or so tells a pretty clear story. We saw a big global blackout, then a major crash in September right after they added more complex features, and then look at that cluster in November. Bam, 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 one hard outage after another. This isn't just a random blip, it's a pattern.
And this table really puts some numbers to it. Over 22 hours of total downtime from major incidents in just 1 year. The average time to get back online was over 3 hours. And that November cluster is really interesting. It was traced back to failures in shared infrastructure. That means something totally unrelated could go wrong at Google and take NotebookLM down with it. That is a huge operational risk for any professional.
Now, those first 2 risks were external, things happening to the tool. This third risk is, well, it's internal. It's about what these incredibly powerful, frictionless tools might be doing to our own brains. This is the one that keeps me up at night: cognitive atrophy.
At the heart of this is a psychological concept called the illusion of competence. Here's how it works. NotebookLM spits out a brilliant, perfectly structured summary, and you feel like you totally get the material. But because you didn't do the hard work of thinking it through and synthesizing it yourself, that feeling can be a total illusion.
It's like always using a calculator. You get the right answer, sure, but your actual ability to do math in your head starts to fade. And this chart just lays it out bare. When you learn something, you're actively processing it. You're going through that productive struggle that actually builds connections in your brain. It strengthens your memory. The AI, on the other hand, puts you into passive mode. It lets you bypass all that struggle. It does the recalling for you. Over time, those critical thinking muscles can start to weaken, and you might not even realize it's happening. Okay, so we've defined the risks, vendor abandonment, instability, and our own brains getting lazy. It sounds a little scary, I know. But this isn't about fear. It's about being a prepared professional. So now we get to the good part, the solution. Let's walk through your mitigation playbook. Here it is, 5 core strategies. We're going to maintain parallel workflows, set up regular exports, intentionally practice that productive struggle, diversify our tools, and this is a big one, design our systems assuming nothing lasts forever. Let's break down what each of these actually looks like in practice. Steps 1 and 2 are all about your foundation. First, run a parallel workflow. This is so important. Think of NotebookLM as an analysis layer, not your one and only brain. Your actual notes, your source files, they need to live somewhere you control. Second, get into the habit of regular exports. Put it on your calendar. First of the month, you download your most important sources and summaries as PDFs or Google Docs. It's your insurance policy. Now, the next 3 steps are about strengthening your process in your mind. Actively practice productive struggle. Before you just copy-paste an answer, stop. Ask yourself, how would I actually verify this? Or what's one perspective this AI is probably missing? Next, diversify. Don't just know about other tools, actually use them. Spend an hour a month in something else so that if you have to switch, it's not a panic. And finally, just assume impermanence. Build your entire system so that if NotebookLM vanished overnight, you'd be annoyed but not crippled. At the end of the day, the goal here is not to run away from these amazing tools. I mean, that would be crazy. It's about shifting from being a passive user to being a deliberate, strategic operator. We want to be the one in the driver's seat, always. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. When you use AI, is it a prosthetic, something that amplifies your own thinking, making you stronger and faster? Or is it becoming a replacement, letting your own intellectual muscles slowly waste away? The answer to that question is entirely up to you.